Who was John Gotti, and why does his name echo through the annals of American criminal history? How did he change the mafia operations? How he spent his days in prison until his death? Stay until the end of this video to find out and learn more about his life. The mere mention of his name stirs images of an underworld ruled by fear and respect, a world where power is absolute and life is cheap, known to many as the Teflon Don. To fully understand the man behind the moniker, we must delve into his early life first. Born in the Bronx, New York in 1940, Gotti was one of 13 children in a poor family. His parents, John and Fanny, were both children of Italian immigrants and struggled to provide for their large family under the weight of poverty. Young Gotti quickly learned that the world was not always kind to those at the bottom of the social ladder. His first brush with crime came when he was just 12 years old, running errands for an underground club in his neighborhood. It was here that he was introduced to the world of the Gambino crime family, one of the 5 families that dominated organized crime in New York City. Under their watchful eye, Gotti began his life of crime, starting with petty theft and gradually moving up the ranks. This early exposure to crime would set the stage for Gotti's meteoric rise in the underworld. Gotti's ruthless ambition quickly earned him a reputation within the Gambino family. John Gotti's climb up the ladder of the Gambino family was as ruthless as it was swift. A man of ambition, Gotti was not one to wait patiently for his turn. He wanted power, and he was ready to do whatever it took to get it. In the early 70s, Gotti made his mark by committing a series of high-profile crimes. He was audacious, fearless, and his actions did not go unnoticed. The Gambino family saw potential in him, a potential for leadership that was raw and untamed. Gotti's most audacious act, however, came in the mid-80s. The boss of the Gambino family, Paul Castellano, was seen by many as weak, ineffective. Gotti saw an opportunity. In a move that shocked the criminal underworld, Gotti organized the assassination of Castellano. It was a bold, risky move, but it paid off. In the aftermath of Castellano's death, Gotti, the man who had orchestrated it all, stepped into the void. He took control of the Gambino family, becoming the new boss. His rise had been ruthless, but it had been effective. Gotti was now at the top, the head of one of the most powerful criminal organizations in America. But with power comes responsibility, and Gotti was quick to realize this. He knew that to maintain his position, he would need to be as ruthless in leadership as he had been in his rise, and so he was. Gotti's reign was marked by a brutal enforcement of loyalty and a fierce protection of his power. Gotti's audacious move to the top was just the beginning of a reign marked by both success and controversy. Gotti had made it to the top, but his rise was far from over. The coming years would see him face challenges, setbacks, and controversy. But for now, John Gotti was the king of the underworld, and he intended to stay that way. Despite his initial invincibility, Gotti's downfall was as dramatic as his ascent. The Teflon Don, as he came to be known because charges didn't stick to him, found himself embroiled in a web of trials, charges, and accusations that began to chip away at his seemingly indestructible exterior. John Gotti's fall from grace began with a series of high-profile trials in the mid-80s. Despite the mounting evidence against him, Gotti was able to evade conviction, earning him his infamous nickname. However, the relentless pursuit of the law enforcement agencies, armed with an increasing amount of incriminating evidence, began to close in. The turning point came in the early 90s when Gotti's underboss, Salvatore "Sammy the Bull" Gravano, turned state's witness. Gravano's betrayal, testifying against Gotti in exchange for a lighter sentence, marked the beginning of the end for the Teflon Don. In 1992, Gotti faced his final trial. This time, the charges were far too severe to shake off. Accused of 13 murders, including that of Paul Castellano, along with numerous charges of racketeering, Gotti could no longer escape the grasp of justice. The evidence against him was overwhelming, and the jury, unconvinced by Gotti's charm and bravado, found him guilty. The once invincible mob boss was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. His reign had come to an abrupt end. The man who had once held New York City in his palm was now confined to a cell, a far cry from the glitz and glamour of his heyday. Gotti spent the remainder of his life behind bars, a stark reminder of the inevitable fall that follows unchecked power and arrogance. In prison, Gotti remained unrepentant, never showing remorse for his crimes. He lived out his days in isolation, a far cry from the powerful figure he once was. His life behind bars was a stark contrast to the lavish lifestyle he had once enjoyed, a symbol of his dramatic fall from grace. The once untouchable Teflon Don had finally met his match in the law. Following his conviction, Gotti was confined within the stark walls of a maximum security prison. His life behind bars was as intriguing as his life of crime. Accustomed to a life of opulence, Gotti had to adapt to a world far removed from the one he once ruled. However, even in prison, Gotti's charisma and reputation preceded him. He was a figure of fascination among the other inmates, many of whom were drawn to his infamous persona. There were rumors that Gotti paid for protection inside prison, although who he might have paid and how much remains a subject of speculation. Despite the harsh conditions of his incarceration, Gotti's influence did not wane. His name echoed through the prison corridors, and even from behind bars, his reputation continued to hold sway. Inmates, guards, and even prison officials were aware of the formidable figure in their midst. Gotti's presence was felt even in confinement, adding another layer to his complex persona. Despite the physical constraints, his influence remained unchained, a testament to his enduring presence in the world of organized crime. His life in prison serves as a stark reminder that even in defeat, Gotti's impact was undeniable. Gotti's life and crimes continue to captivate, but what is his lasting impact? His influence on organized crime was significant, shaping the mafia's operations and strategies for years. He was the embodiment of a ruthless, cunning mob boss, an archetype that has since been etched into the annals of crime history. However, Gotti's influence wasn't just confined to the underworld. His flamboyant lifestyle and notorious reputation grabbed the media's attention, leading to countless portrayals in films, books, and television. From his sharp suits to his audacious bravado, Gotti's image became synonymous with the mafia, permeating American pop culture and shaping our collective understanding of organized crime. But despite his glamorous portrayal, let's not forget the harsh reality. His life was marked by violence, deceit, and ultimately, downfall. John Gotti, a man of contradictions, remains one of the most fascinating figures in American crime history.